Okay, in 13, we need to graph the function between 0 and 2 pi, so between 0 and 2 pi. So what we will do is sketch a graph that's not on the main graph. And we know it's a positive cosine, so we're going to start up, go to 0, go to the negative, go back up to the positive. So this is a general sketch of what our graph is going to look like. Now we just have to see how much of it is shown on this graph. So we need to find our amplitude, which is 1/2. So this is going to go up to 1/2 and down to -1/2. And we need to know where this ends. So to do that, we need to find our period. Again, our period is 2 pi over b. So we need to substitute in b, in this case, which is 2. 2's cancel, so pi is our period. So that means that the endpoint on this graph is pi. So if this is pi, we need to figure out what each one of these intervals are. Since this has 4 equal intervals, we can take pi and divide by 4 to get what these numbers are going to be. So pi divided by 4 is just pi over 4, but then we have 2 pi over 4 here, and then 3 pi over 4. It's just pi over 4 times 1, pi over 4 times 2 for the second interval, and pi over 4 times 3 for the third interval, and then 4 pi over 4 for pi, which reduces down to pi. And this one, the second one, can reduce also to just pi over 2. So this is really just pi over 2. So now that we have our points, we can just sketch them on our graph. So at 0, we're at 1/2. So 0, 1/2 is a point on this graph. Pi over 4 is this little mark before pi over 2. We're at 0. And pi over 2, we're right here. We're at -1/2. So that's right here. And then at 3 pi over 4, we're back to 0. And at pi, we're back to 1/2. And then we're going to continue. So we're up at the top, so now we got to go back down to the middle. Next spot, we're going to go back to -1/2. And then next spot, we're going back to 0. And then at 2 pi, we'll go back up to 1/2. So we can sketch this graph. I want to make it a curvy graph, not a V. They aren't V's. So try to sketch it as a curve. And there's the cosine graph. And for B, the sine, we need to find out what our period is. So again, our period is 2 pi divided by B. In this case, B is pi over 4. So we have to multiply by the reciprocal. So this ends up being 2 pi times 4 over pi. Pi's cancel. And our period is going to be 8. So if our period's 8, let's sketch this graph. It's a positive sine, so we're going to start at 0, go up, down, down, and back up. So here's one cycle of the positive sine graph. Now we're going to end our graph at 8. And since 8 gets divided by 4 to find out what these intervals are, 8 divided by 4 is 2. This is 2. This will be 4. This will be 6, and that's 8. So 2 pi is a little bit over 6, so we're only going to be seeing this part, most of this part of the graph. So we'll start with 0, 0. Our amplitude is 2, so this goes up to 2 and down to -2. So at 2, we go to 2. So since each one of these is a half, this is 1, 1.5, 2. 2, 2 is a point on this graph. And then 4, so this is 2, 2.5, 3, 3.5, 4. 4 is at 0 from our little sketch, 4, 0. Then we go to 6, well this is 4, 4.5, 5, 5.5, 6. 6 is down at -2. And that's about all we can see on this graph from 0 to 2 pi. So we'll sketch it. Again, they're little arcs, not V's. And then it's going to head back up. So that's the graph of 13. Okay, 14, we'll do another sign graph. This time it's a negative sign graph. Again, we have to find our period. 2 pi divided by b, which is 1/4. So you have to multiply by the reciprocal of 1/4, which is 4. So we get 8 pi for our period. Okay, so now let's sketch a little graph of this, what it's going to look like. We're going to start at sign, so it's starting at 0. We're going to go negative sign, so it's going down first. So there's our negative sign graph. So this is 8 pi. So if we divide 8 pi by 4, we're going to get 2 pi. So 2 pi will be here, 4 pi here, and 6 pi here. So if we're only graphing between 0 and 2 pi, we're only going to see this portion of the graph here, and that's 1/4 of the graph. And so we're going to start at 0, 0, and at 2 pi, which is all the way over here, we're going to go down to our amplitude, which is just 1. So at 2 pi, we go to -1, and that's the whole graph. So that's all you can see.